When I think about my childhood, I always remember my love for biking. Almost every day I would hop on my bike and explore the neighborhood. One summer afternoon when I was 8, my friend and I pedaled through the streets, racing each other and stopping for snacks. After a few hours, my friend had to go home, but I wasn't ready to call it a day. So I decided to ride alone, taking a peaceful route lined with trees and widely spaced houses. At first, everything felt serene, but soon I noticed a white Volkswagen driving behind me. I didn't think much of it. Cars came and went all the time. But as I continued, the car didn't pass me. Instead, it stayed close, making every turn I made. My dad had taught me about safety, so I decided to test whether the car was really following me. I made a series of sharp turns, but the Volkswagen stuck to me like glue. My heart began to race as I realized I was being followed. Pedaling harder, I tried to lose the car. Suddenly, it stopped beside me and a man stepped out. He was disheveled with a scruffy beard and clothes that looked like they hadn't been washed in days. His smell hit me like a wave, but I didn't want to be rude, so I resisted the urge to cover my nose. The man crouched to my level and asked if I was okay. I nodded, keeping my eyes fixed on him, trying to gauge his intentions. He claimed to be a friend of my parents and said they had sent him to take me to my grandma's house. But his story didn't add up. My grandma had been dead for 5 years. I called him a liar and started pedaling as fast as I could. As I sped away, the man reached out, trying to grab my arm, but I had already put enough distance between us. I rode straight home without looking back, my mind racing with thoughts of what could have happened if I hadn't escaped. When I burst through the front door, I was shaking and crying. My parents were alarmed as I told them everything. They called the police, providing a description of the car. Amazingly, the police intercepted the white Volkswagen and arrested the man after confirming my story. Although I never found out what happened to him, I was relieved to know he had been caught. That day taught me the importance of trusting my instincts and staying alert. Another memorable biking incident happened a few years later. A serious car accident had occurred just a couple of blocks from our farmhouse. The next day, curiosity got the better of me, and I asked my mom if I could ride my bike to the site. She agreed, but warned me not to go too far. The scene was quiet when I arrived. Bits of broken glass and crumpled metal were scattered on the ground. As I examined the debris, a dark blue station wagon pulled up. 2 men inside looked older, maybe in their 40s. They rolled down the window and called out to me, asking which one of them was cuter. Alarm bells went off in my head, and I jumped back on my bike, pedaling as fast as I could toward home. As I screamed, hoping my mom would hear, I glanced back and saw the station wagon turning to follow me. My mom must have heard me because she came running out, her face a mix of confusion and concern. Seeing her, the men hesitated, slammed on the brakes, and drove away. My mom was shaken when I explained what had happened. She called the police, but there wasn't much they could do with the limited information we had. The incident left me unsettled, reminding me that danger could strike even in familiar, safe places. Years later, I was biking through a park one evening. The route was familiar, and I had ridden it many times before. As I pedaled along the dirt path, I struggled up a hill, the weight of my bike making the climb difficult. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. They grew louder as if someone was gaining on me. Feeling self-conscious about my slow pace, I moved to the side, expecting the jogger to pass, but no one appeared. I stopped and looked around, but the trail was empty. Chilled, I quickly continued to my destination. That night, out of curiosity, I researched the park and discovered it was built over a cemetery. Stories of ghostly encounters and unexplained phenomena surfaced in my search. While I haven't experienced anything strange there since, I now avoid the park after dark. During a long-distance cycling trip across Australia, I found myself camping alone in a secluded forest. The ruins of old stone houses peeked through the trees, creating an eerie but fascinating atmosphere. After setting up my tent and eating a quick dinner, I settled in for the night. The forest was unnervingly quiet. Normally, I would hear the sounds of crickets or rustling leaves, but that night there was only silence. Then, I heard it. Deliberate footsteps circling my tent. My heart pounded as I gripped a shovel for protection. The footsteps continued, sometimes fading into the distance only to return. I sat frozen for hours, too scared to move. Eventually, exhaustion overtook me and I fell asleep. By morning, the forest had returned to its natural state, with birds chirping and leaves rustling. There were no signs of the previous night's events, no tracks or broken branches. The experience left me shaken, but I packed up and moved on, relieved to leave the eerie forest behind. One of the most terrifying biking experiences happened on a trail near my house. It was a route I knew well, and I often biked it at night. One evening, as my bike light illuminated the path ahead, I spotted a figure standing just beyond the tree line. It was visible for only a split second as I sped by, but it looked like a person, standing motionless in the shadows. Nervous, I completed the loop, knowing I would have to pass the same spot on my way back. When I reached the area again, the figure was no longer in the trees. It was now standing in the middle of the trail. My heart raced as I slowed down, trying to decide what to do. The figure was a man, his legs apart, blocking my path. I yelled at him to move, but he didn't respond. Gathering my courage, I pedaled forward, hoping to dart past him. As I approached, he lunged at me, trying to push me off my bike. I swerved, kicking out at him as he reached for me. Adrenaline surged through me as I managed to stay upright and escape. Once home, I reported the incident to the authorities, but they didn't find him. Since that day, I still bike the trail, but always carry protection, just in case. Biking has brought me joy, adventure, and even a few scares. These experiences have taught me to stay vigilant, trust my instincts, and appreciate the thrill of exploring the world on two wheels. Through all the ups and downs, biking remains one of my greatest passions.